This morning I want to continue on with a mini lesson pertaining to the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. And I want to answer the question, wasn't the rich man and Lazarus, didn't they both die? And didn't they go from death to judgment or afterwards? I would like to explain the reason why Jesus talked about them dying, the dying of the rich man and the dying of Lazarus. And in this discussion of the death of the rich man and the death of the Lazarus, I'm trying to show that this is a parable and is not a historical event, that it gives a message to the Jews about the change in their situation. And what we are saying here is that we want to show, first of all, that the parable of the rich man and Lazarus is in the book of Luke, St. Luke's Gospel. Point number one. And number two, that Luke was a Gentile. Point number two. Number three, Luke's mission and Luke's writings and perspective of the gospel were from the standpoint of a hope of the Gentiles, of them being admitted into the graces of God. And that the point number three is that Jesus Christ was ministering to the Jews a special message, warning the Jews about the changes that will come when the church comes and the Gentiles are brought into the church. At the point when he gave the parable, the Gentiles were not in at that point. The Gentiles were considered beggars. They were considered poor. Like, for instance, the lady who came to Jesus and said, "Master, can we, I know it's not, we can't, I know I can't have a seat at the table, but at least let me have the crumbs that fall from the table." Jesus said it's not good for him to give the meat of the children to dogs. And so he was really referring to Gentiles. And then when the Grecian people came to Jesus in St. John chapter 12, those men came from a far Grecian country, said, "We went to see Jesus." But he had to send, he wouldn't come out to them. But he sent word to them and said, "I can't come out to you now. I'm not ministering to the Gentiles. But if I be lifted up from the earth, I'll draw all men unto me. After the Calvary, all men will come." St. John chapter 1, read about verse 11. He came unto his own. He came to the Jews first, and his own received him not. This is afterwards, as we look back on Jesus' life. John writes this. "And his own received him not, but to as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God." This is the Gentiles becoming the sons of God. And then if we go to Ephesians chapter 2:12, where Paul said that the Gentiles were alienated from the commonwealth of Israel. They didn't have all the wealth that Israel had. You know, when we say wealth, we're not talking about finances. We're talking about the promises of Abraham and the law and the commandment and the covenants and all of those rich things that they had in God's relationship with the Jews. And so it is the wealth there has to do, and the wealth, the circumstance and their status has to do with the wealth of them being Jews. It's not about a rich man, a Jew or Gentile in the world who was so mean to Lazarus that he ended up going to hell over it, because that's not even brought out in the parable. But the focus here is on the richness of the Jews and their situation and their status, their special status. And the poorness is the poorness of the Gentiles, who are considered like beggars, who are the outside of the promises, the commonwealth of Israel. That's why the Lazarus is outside of the gate. He's not even inside. And the dogs, he's in a position exposed to dogs, which are those that have no access, substandards, and are alienated from God. So in this has been going on all throughout the Old Testament, the riches of the Jews having access and the poverty of the Gentiles. There's no Gentile anything offered in the Old Testament. And so that when it comes to the things of God, any promises of God. The millennial was to the Jews and all of that. When it comes to any of those things, the Gentiles didn't have it in the Old Testament. And so Jesus is describing the actual set and conditions of the Jews and the Gentiles, let's say up to the church, up to Pentecost. They were rich and the Gentiles were poor. The Jews were rich. They had Abraham. They had Moses. They were rich. And the Gentiles were poor. So, in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, Jesus brings this out. And as he brings it out, and let me tell you, if you were in that day, this would have been easy to say. See, the reason why it's hard for you to see today is because of what our theologians have tried to cover this story up, and what they call replacement theology. Those that hate the Jews, they don't want you to see the story. The real essence of the story was about the Jews and their position and their relationship. So now, up to that point, as Jesus describes the rich man being, he fares sumptuously every day and everything like that, and then the poor man is outside the gate, dogs licking his sores. He has no excess. So having no excess, and that was the circumstance of the Gentiles in the world. But there's going to be a great change, a change in the circumstances. What this death in the parable is representing is the change and the point of the switch. All right. So he said, and the rich man died, and he died, and he was buried, or he went to the grave, or he went where all go, or to a dead place. But Lazarus goes directly to the bosom of Abraham. The bosom of Abraham is the symbol of those favorite things I just mentioned about the Jews, what they had. So now we have the Gentiles going and being in the favorite place. They're there. It's almost like a strange thing for Lazarus to be in the bosom of Abraham now, which was where the Jews were with all their riches and everything. So on the death represents the switch, the ending of the circumstance. The end of the circumstance where the Gentiles are out is going to come, probably via the church. They're no longer going to be out, as it's described by Ephesians chapters 1, 2, and 3, in particular chapter 2, verse number 12, about the Gentiles now having access. And so Luke, this Gentile writer, and Jesus, the messenger to the Jews, is using the book of Luke to begin to tell how that there's going to be a switch where the Gentiles are going to be in and the Jews will be out. And so this switch is, and this death is the point of the ending of that situation. And the Lazarus being in the bosom of Abraham is the new situation. It's not about the afterlife. It's really about the switch of the position of favor and access of the Gentiles with the Jews, who are blinded now because they've rejected their opportunity. And now they are blind and they're in somewhat like a dead-like situation. That's why it says, and he lifted up his eyes in hell. Well, the word hell there means death. It means grave. And so this is not talking about Platonic hell. That word wasn't even just count that word out of there because it wasn't even in the original Bible. The Platonic people put that in there to try to get you to think that this is talking about the hell that Plato talked about and the Catholics talk about. It's not that. The hell here is the death of them, the Jews being in a dead-like situation. They're not responding. They don't have their covenants anymore. They don't have. They still have them, but they're dead to those things. They're dead. They're not. They're blinded, and they're scattered, and so because they miscalculated and devaluated the position they had in being rich with all of that. So now they're in a dead-like situation. He lifted up his eyes. And then, so what did he see? He looked and he saw Lazarus in the bosom of Abraham. And so what you have is the Jews looking from the outside in and looking across a gulf that separated them from Abraham and Lazarus. Abraham is a type of the favor of God that are in the promises of Abraham and that the Jews had and that the Gentiles will now have access to after Calvary, at the start of the church. And so the death is the symbol of the change that will take place. That will be the point of the epic of the change of the two statuses. And the Jews are now outside and the Gentiles are inside. And we know this is about the Jews because Abraham says, he calls him son. And so that means that these are the sons, these are the Jews. So now, you would probably need to look at the other videos to get the entire background. But because of my limit of the 10-minute session, I'm defining for you what the death of the rich man and Lazarus really meant. Sometimes the people who believe in the health theory believe that it meant that they died and went to judgment. But that is all knocked out even by the fact that the Bible doesn't teach that. But anyway, that's what it's for. And God bless you and keep you. And we look forward to sharing with you again in the next lesson on the revelation of hell. God bless you and thank you for your attention today.